And what makes you think you belong here? Ms. African. Gasps rippled through the rows. He dropped the mic with a hollow thud, the sound slicing through the silence. Screens glowed around them as students began recording. Heat crawled up Amira's neck, shame and fury twisting in her chest. Hyunwoo leaned in, eyes cold, voice low enough to cut. Do us a favor and leave. You're staining this place. Nobody wants you here. The disgust in his face, eyes wide, lips curled, made her fists tremble. Something inside her snapped. Before she could second-guess it, she surged forward and grabbed his collar. Then she kissed him. Hard. Before we jump into today's story, make sure to subscribe, like and share your thoughts in the comments so you won't miss any of the exciting Moon Bunny adventures ahead. The bell rang, sharp and final, echoing through the marble halls of Dehan International High. Students spilled out of classrooms like water from a broken pipe. Laughing, shouting, shoving. Amira Blake walked through the chaos with her head down, earbuds in, hoodie up. Not because she was cold, but because she was tired. Tired of being stared at, whispered about, mocked. Amira was the only black girl in the entire school. The only one with box braids that brushed her shoulders. The only one who didn't come from a chaebol family or speak Korean like it had been sewn into her tongue. She'd learned the language from late-night dramas and worn-out textbooks. But no matter how carefully she pronounced each word, nothing could hide the truth: she didn't belong. Back in Africa, Korea had felt like a dream. She'd fallen in love with the music, the food, the glow of cherry blossoms on a laptop screen. Winning a scholarship to Dehan International. High felt like fate, the kind of story K-dramas promised. But reality hit harder than any script. The smiles were thinner. The stares lasted longer. And Kang Hyunwoo, her relentless bully, never missed a chance to remind her she was an outsider. Hyunwoo owned the hallway like a king claiming his throne. He stood at the center, tall and sharp-edged, his blazer hanging loose in a way that made the uniform look like rebellion. His friends crowded around him, laughing too loud, their voices echoing off the lockers. The moment Amira turned the corner, his eyes found hers. "Yo Hyunwoo," one of his friends called, a grin spreading across his face. "Your girlfriend's here." Hyunwoo didn't even glance their way. His eyes stayed on Amira as he answered, voice sharp enough to cut. "Never. I'd never have something like that as my girlfriend." The words slid through the hallway like a blade. Amira felt the sting but locked her jaw, refusing to give them the satisfaction of seeing her flinch. Her grip tightened on the strap of her bag until her knuckles burned, the only sign that the insult had landed. Hyunwoo didn't smile. He just turned his head slightly, eyes locking onto Amira like a sniper. "Still trying to cosplay Korean?" he said, voice loud enough to cut through the crowd. Amira kept walking. "Hey," another boy called. "Say something in Korean. Let's hear that accent." Amira kept walking. No glance. No pause. Her steps stayed steady even as her chest tightened. But before she could slip past, the boys shifted, blocking the hallway like a wall. "Please," she said quietly, forcing the words out in careful Korean. "I'll be late for class." Their laughter cracked through the corridor. "Is that how Africans talk?" one of them sneered, exaggerating her vowels. She kept her eyes on the floor, lips pressed tight. "Fine, you can go," Hyunwoo said, his smirk daring her to believe him. Amira gave a small nod and stepped forward, only to feel her foot hook against something solid. Her body pitched forward and she hit the floor hard, palms stinging against the cold tiles. Gasps burst behind her, followed by cruel laughter. One of the boys slid his leg back with a satisfied grin as the group sauntered away toward class. Biting down on the pain, Amira pushed herself up, brushed the dust from her knees and forced her breathing steady. She walked into the classroom seconds later, heat still burning in her. The teacher's sharp gaze snapped to her. "You're late," he barked. "I'm sorry," she said quickly, bowing before hurrying to her seat. But even there, humiliation waited. Her chair was flipped upside down, the metal legs sticking up like a cruel joke. Amira straightened it without a word, sat down and fixed her eyes on the blackboard, her hands clenched tight in her lap where no one could see them shake. In class she sat in the back. Alone. Her desk was covered in pencil shavings and someone had scratched, "Go home" into the wood. She stared at it for a long time before pulling out her notebook. Hyunwoo sat 2 rows ahead, surrounded by people who laughed at everything he said. He didn't look at her. Not once. but she felt him. Every time she raised her hand, he scoffed. Every time she answered in Korean, he muttered something under his breath. The teacher ignored it. Everyone did. Except Amira. Lunch was worse. She sat under the staircase eating rice balls from a convenience store bag. Her phone buzzed with messages from her cousin back in Africa. You good? Are they still acting weird? Want me to fly over and fight someone? She smiled faintly. But it didn't last. A shadow fell over her. Hyungwoo. He leaned against the wall, arms crossed, expression unreadable. You really like hiding, huh? Amira didn't respond. He stepped closer. You think you're strong. But you're just loud. She looked up. And you think you're the leader? You're just mean. His jaw tightened. Careful. Or what? She said. You'll say something racist again? Hyungwoo blinked. Just once. Then he turned and walked away. His friends laughed from across the courtyard. Amira stared at her half-eaten lunch, appetite gone. Amira lay sprawled on the couch, her bag tossed carelessly to the floor, the weight of another cruel day pressing on her chest. Her stomach ached from hunger, but the thought of food only made the knot in her throat tighten. She blinked hard, refusing to let the tears win. Hyenwoo's mocking laugh still echoed in her ears, the sharp whispers of his friends chasing her like shadows she couldn't outrun. Studying at home used to be her escape, but lately even the words on her books blurred, his name scratching at the back of her mind until she could barely breathe. This wasn't the Korea she'd imagined, the one from the dramas where friendships blossomed under cherry blossoms and every smile was warm. The real Korea felt colder, sharper each hallway filled with eyes that sliced at her difference. Still she clenched her fists against the cushions, nails digging into the fabric. Leaving wasn't an option. This was her dream, the country she had fought to reach. She would finish her studies, graduate, and return to Africa. With proof that her parents were wrong, that she could survive in a place where no one looked like her and still stand tall. She swallowed hard as she pushed open the classroom door, the air sharp against her skin. A gasp snagged in her throat. Someone had printed a photo of her from Instagram and taped it to the bulletin board, bold letters scrawled underneath. Foreign flavor. Try it before it expires. Her chest tightened. Fingers trembling, she tore the paper down in one rough yank. The edges crumpled in her grip as heat crawled up her neck. Hyunwoo strolled past, eyes flicking from the empty board to her clenched fists. No word. No grin. Just that quick glance. It stung worse than a laugh. By Friday her patience was gone. The auditorium buzzed with chatter for the mandatory school debate. Amira slumped in the third row, arms locked tight across her chest, jaw set. On stage Hyunwoo stood under the bright lights talking about nationalism and identity as if he hadn't spent the week shredding hers. Every polished sentence rolled off his tongue like honey. Smooth, confident, dangerous. The crowd ate it up. Her stomach knotted. She hated that they adored him. When the moderator invited questions from the audience, Amira shot to her feet. My question is for Kang Hyunwoo, she said, her voice cutting clean through the noise. Hyenwoo's eyebrows rose, a flicker of interest crossing his face. What gives you the right to decide who belongs here? She asked, each word steady, sharp. Is it the language? The skin? The money? The room froze. Hyenwoo's lips curled into a slow smirk. I don't decide, he said softly. The culture does. And you know what? Thank you for that wonderful question, Hyunwoo said, his voice dripping with charm as he stepped down from the stage. The crowd murmured, phones snapping up like a flock of birds. Amira's heartbeat thundered as he walked straight toward her, each step echoing against the auditorium floor. He stopped right in front of her, the spotlight catching the sharp curve of his smirk. And what makes you think you belong here? Miss African. Gasps rippled through the rows. He dropped the mic with a hollow thud, the sound slicing through the silence. Screens glowed around them as students began recording. Heat crawled up Amira's neck, shame and fury twisting in her chest. Hyunwoo leaned in, eyes cold, voice low enough to cut. Do us a favor and leave. You're staining this place. Nobody wants you here. The disgust in his face, eyes wide, lips curled, made her fists tremble. Something inside her snapped. Before she could second-guess it, she surged forward and grabbed his collar. Then she kissed him. Hard. The room erupted, screams, shouts, a sea of flashing cameras. Hyunwoo froze, eyes blown wide in shock. Amira pulled back, breath ragged, her pulse roaring in her ears. For a heartbeat, the entire auditorium stood frozen. Then she spun on her heel and ran, her shoes slamming against the aisle as the noise of shouting and camera clicks chased her all the way to the bathroom. She locked herself inside, chest heaving, the sound of her own heartbeat filling the tiled room. Minutes passed, she wasn't sure how many, before a soft knock broke through the silence. Amira hesitated, then cracked the door open. A girl stood there, beautiful and sharp-featured, her dark hair framing a calm, warm smile. "Hi," she said gently, extending a hand. "I'm Jisoo." Amira blinked, startled, but took the hand anyway. "Amira," she murmured. Jisoo's grip was firm, her eyes steady. "You need to leave. No. They'll come looking for you." Before Amira could reply, Jisoo tugged her forward. Together they slipped out of the stall, sneakers squeaking against the tiles. As if on cue, the door banged open. A flood of students poured in, phones raised, voices buzzing with excitement. Jisoo shot Amira a knowing look, lips curling into a small, wry smile. "Told you," she whispered. Amira was a bit shocked. "What you did today was very brave. No one has ever even dared to stare at his face, let alone kiss him. But it also means that you have to be careful because very soon the videos would circulates." Amira stared at Jisoo, still catching her breath. The girl's calm smile felt almost unreal after the chaos outside. "What you did today was brave," Jisoo said, her voice low but firm. "No one's ever dared to even look Hyunwoo in the eye, let alone kiss him. But you need to be careful. The videos will start spreading soon." A lump formed in Amira's throat. She swallowed hard. "I'm ready to face the consequences," she whispered. Jisoo's smile widened just slightly, approval flashing in her eyes. She nodded once. "Then you're stronger than most." From that moment something shifted. Jisoo didn't just walk away, she stayed. And in the days that followed she became the first real friend Amira had at Dehan. But when night came and Amira sat alone on her bed, shame pressed down like a weight. She hadn't even opened the class group chat. She didn't need to. She knew the videos, the comments, the ridicule were already there waiting. Her chest tightened. She slapped her cheeks lightly, once, twice, again, like she could shake herself awake from the nightmare she'd created. Then she buried her face in her knees, wishing the buzzing of her phone would stop. The next morning the halls of Dehan felt off. Hyunwoo's usual spot was empty, his throne of mockery abandoned. Amira kept her eyes forward, trying to breathe past the stares. But one of his friends broke from the cluster and shoved her hard. Her shoulder slammed into the wall with a dull thud. "What kind of food do you eat every day?" he demanded, stepping into her space. Amira blinked, heart pounding. What do you mean by that?" "Answer me, you African," he barked, his voice slicing through the hallway. She flinched at the echo. He leaned closer, a cruel grin twisting his face. "Hyun was at home with a stomach ache. Thanks to you and that disgusting kiss. Don't you Africans brush your teeth in the morning?" The laughter of his friends rippled behind him like a wave. Amira's throat tightened, but she refused to give them a single word. "Yes, we do," Amira shot back, her voice tight but steady. "And I'm pretty sure his stomach ache has nothing to do with me kissing him." She turned, ready to leave. Enough was enough. But a sharp kick hooked her ankle. Her foot twisted and she went down hard, palms scraping against the cold floor. A ripple of laughter erupted around her, phones lifting like a forest of glowing eyes. "Look at our school celebrity," one boy shouted, his grin wide and mocking. A girl's voice cut through the noise, dripping with fake sweetness. She kissed a Korean boy and probably texted all her cousins back in their little hut about her big, once-in-a-lifetime achievement. The hallway exploded with cruel laughter. Heat burned behind Amira's eyes as she stared at the floor, wishing, praying, for it to crack open and swallow her whole. "Amira, are you okay? Get up." Amira lifted her head and found Jisoo standing over her, hand outstretched. Jisoo's fingers wrapped firmly around hers, steady and warm, pulling her to her feet. With a calm smile that didn't reach her eyes, Jisoo turned to the crowd. "Don't you all have classes?" she said, her voice sharp as glass. "Bunch of fools." The hallway went quiet for a beat. Students shifted back, a path opening like a ripple in water. Jisoo tightened her grip on Amira's hand and led her forward, chin high. "Whoa, what's gotten into Jisoo?" someone whispered. I swear I feel like smacking the back of her head, another muttered. As Amira walked, she caught the subtle curl of noses and the faint sound of snickers behind cupped hands. A few students even covered their noses as if her presence carried a stench. The silent cruelty sliced deeper than the words. But Amira kept her head straight, eyes fixed ahead, each step a quiet act of defiance as the murmurs followed them down the corridor. In the massive penthouse, Hyunwoo stood rigid before his mother, the city lights spilling in through the wide windows. The crack of her palm echoed across the room as it struck his cheek. I will have that video taken down immediately, she snapped, eyes blazing. And I'll make sure that alien is expelled for assaulting you. Hyunwoo's jaw tightened. His hand hovered over the sting on his face. She's not an alien, Mom, he said quietly. His mother froze, her eyes narrowing as if she'd misheard. Excuse me? Are you defending her now? Her voice rose, sharp enough to cut. Where's your dignity? Do you want this to hit the news? To ruin everything I've built? Your father is gone. Hyunwoo. Don't tell me you're dating that girl. No. The word shot out of him before he could stop it. There's no way I'd date someone like that. His mother's expression softened into a cold, satisfied smile. That's my boy. I mean, just look at her skin. God. How could Dehan International even accept someone that low class? Are there not enough Koreans in Korea? The venom in her tone lingered in the air, heavy and suffocating. Hyunwoo lowered his gaze, the echo of her slap still burning against his skin. Amira sat cross-legged on the couch, pencil tapping against her math workbook as Jisoo leaned over with her phone. Look, Jisoo said, a small grin tugging at her lips. The video's gone. Completely wiped from the internet. Amira blinked, the numbers on the page suddenly meaningless. Wait, really? Really? So you can finally breathe and show up to school tomorrow without the whole world watching. Relief surged through Amira so fast it almost made her dizzy. She dropped the pencil and threw her arms around Jisoo, laughing into her shoulder. Jisoo hugged her back, then pulled away with a raised eyebrow. You know, some people probably saved it on their phones, right? Amira's smile faltered for a heartbeat. Don't worry, Jisoo said quickly. As long as it's off the internet, that's what matters. I'm pretty sure Hyunwoo's family had a hand in it. They own half the shares of Dehan International and a chunk of a chaebol group. Cleaning up a video is nothing for them. Amira sank back against the couch, heart still racing, the mix of relief and unease swirling inside her like a storm that hadn't quite passed. Amira's eyes widened. He's that rich. Jisoo nodded, lips curving in a knowing smile. That's why he struts around like he owns the place. That's why he bullies people, because he can. And that's why, she added with a mischievous glint, I was proud of you for kissing him in front of everyone. I doubt he was sick. He probably just hid at home embarrassed. Amira covered her mouth, but laughter slipped out anyway. Jisoo joined in until the room filled with their giggles. For the first time, the memory of that kiss felt less like shame and more like a quiet victory. A small revenge for every student Hyunwoo had ever humiliated. The next morning, the hallway felt different. Students still stared, but their eyes carried something new, curiosity, maybe even caution. Amira kept her chin up and walked straight to class, bracing for the usual cruelty. But her chair was clean. No insults scrawled across the seat. She set down her bag only to feel a heavy gaze burning into her. Across the room, Hyunwoo sat stiff and silent, his friends nudging him, cracking jokes, trying to pull a laugh from him. He didn't even blink. His eyes stayed locked on Amira, sharp and unreadable. Her pulse jumped. She quickly turned to face the front of the class. Amira, the teacher called. She rose to her feet. The principal wants to see you. A hush settled over the room as she stepped into the aisle, every eye following her as she marched toward the door. Amira Lucas, correct? The principal's voice carried no warmth, only the clipped precision of someone who had already decided the outcome. Amira sat stiffly in the chair across from his desk, the leather too cold against her palms. She nodded once, her throat too tight for words. He glanced down at the folder in front of him, fingers drumming a slow, deliberate rhythm against the wood. The sound filled the room like a ticking clock. When he finally spoke again, the words landed like stones. It has been brought to our attention that you assaulted a male student on school grounds. Dehan International has zero tolerance for such behavior. Effective immediately, You are suspended until further notice. The final word, suspended, seemed to echo inside her head, each syllable stretching longer than it should. Amira's jaw slackened. For a heartbeat she couldn't breathe. Her heart pounded so violently she was sure he could hear it. "I've what?" "No sir, The principal closed the folder with a sharp snap, cutting her off. "This institution values order and reputation above all else. Incidents like this are not only frowned upon, they are unforgivable. We cannot allow violence to stain our school's image." Her chest tightened, panic rising like a tide. Please, sir, it wasn't like that," she managed, her voice trembling. "I didn't hurt anyone. Enough." He didn't look up, his eyes already dropping back to the papers on his desk. "The decision has been made. You may use the door, Miss Lucas." Amira gripped the edge of the chair, the polished wood slick under her fingertips. "Please. I can explain," she whispered, desperation bleeding into every word. His pen scratched across the page, a sound more final than any shout. "I would like to leave my office now," he said, his tone cool and dismissive. "Please see yourself out." The room seemed to shrink around her, the walls pressing closer with every breath. Her legs felt heavy as she rose, knees threatening to buckle. Each step toward the door was a battle. One against the sting in her eyes, against the trembling in her hands, against the scream clawing its way up her throat. She reached for the handle, the metal icy against her palm. Behind her, the principal never looked up. Outside, the hallway hummed with the distant sound of laughter and shuffling shoes. Ordinary life moving on while her world cracked apart. Amira leaned against the wall for balance, heart hammering so loudly it drowned out everything else. Suspended. The word burned through her chest like fire. Her dream of Dehan International, of Korea itself, suddenly felt as fragile as paper, ready to tear at the slightest touch. Amira's knees wobbled as she stumbled out of the principal's office, the heavy wooden door clicking shut behind her. Suspended, possibly expelled. The words kept ringing in her skull like a cruel echo, each repetition tightening the knot in her chest. Her scholarship, her dream, everything she had left Africa for was collapsing like a sandcastle under a cruel tide. "I can't let it end like this." She turned back, her feet moving before her mind could catch up. Maybe if she explained, if she begged, if she proved she wasn't the aggressor, the principal would listen. But before she could reach the office again, a tall figure stepped into the hallway, blocking her path. Hyungwoo. He stood there like a wall, his blazer slightly crooked, his dark eyes unreadable. For a heartbeat, the world narrowed to the space between them. "What now?" he said sharply, his voice low but laced with tension. "You want to come after me again? To ruin me even more?" Amira froze. "Ruin you? What are you talking about? Don't act innocent." His voice rose, cracking in anger. "Because of you, my life is turning into a circus. Do you even know what it's like to have your name all over the internet?" Amira blinked, stunned. "But I'm the one who got expelled." Her voice cracked on the last word, the truth tasting like metal on her tongue. Hyunwoo faltered just for a second. His eyes flickered with something, guilt. Before hardening again. "That doesn't mean I'm not suffering," he shot back. "Do you have any idea what my mother is saying? What is the press sniffing around for? Everyone's watching me because of you." Her hands balled into fists. "Me? I didn't leak that video. I didn't start the rumors. And I sure didn't ask to be humiliated." Tears burned her eyes, but she refused to let them fall. She stepped closer, anger vibrating through her small frame. "Do you know what this means for me? I came here on a scholarship. I worked years for this. And now it's gone because I dared to exist in the same hallway as you." Hyunwoo opened his mouth but no words came out. His jaw clenched, eyes darting to the side. The silence between them stretched, thick with everything neither of them wanted to admit. Then the sound of deliberate footsteps echoed down the corridor. The principal. His polished shoes clicked sharply against the marble as he approached, carrying an air of authority that made the few lingering students scatter. Amira's panic spiked. Without thinking, she dropped to her knees right in front of him. The sudden movement startled him and he nearly stumbled back. "Please," she said, her voice cracking under the weight of desperation. "Please, sir, I'll do anything. Anything. Don't cancel my scholarship. Please don't send me away." Her palms pressed flat against the cold, gleaming floor as tears finally spilled, darkening the fabric of her skirt. "Miss Lucas," the principal said, his deep voice faltering with something like discomfort. He crouched until his eyes were level with hers. "Stand up. This isn't." But Amira couldn't. Her shoulders trembled as sobs ripped free, her forehead nearly touching the ground. All she could think about was home, the sacrifices her mother had made, the nights she'd spent memorizing Korean grammar, the dreams of fitting into a world she had admired from oceans away. "All these things you're doing won't help you," the principal said, his voice clipped and cold. He didn't even glance at her tear-streaked face. "If this is how you get what you want back in the country you came from, then let me make this clear. You should consider yourself lucky you weren't reported to immigration. Next time remember your place. Never mess with someone higher than you." His polished shoes clicked sharply as he stepped around her, the scent of his cologne trailing behind like a warning. Amira stayed frozen on the marble floor, knees aching, until the echo of his footsteps disappeared down the hallway. That was when it sank in heavy and undeniable. This wasn't about school rules. This was Hyenwa's family. This was power. And she had none. Her chest tightened as realization burned through her like acid. They hadn't just suspended her. They'd made sure she understood exactly how small she was in their world. Later that evening, Amira lay curled on Jisoo's couch, her head resting on Jisoo's lap while the quiet hum of the heater filled the room. Jisoo's fingers moved gently through her braids, each stroke slow and soothing. "Are you still crying?" Jisoo asked softly. Amira sniffled but didn't answer. Her eyes felt raw, swollen, the kind of ache that even sleep couldn't erase. "Come on," Jisoo whispered, tilting Amira's chin so their eyes met. "You've been crying since you got here. Breathe for me, okay? Just breathe." Amira drew a shaky breath, but her voice cracked anyway. "Even if I stop, even if I breathe, it won't reverse my suspension." The words tasted bitter, heavy on her tongue. Her gaze dropped to the floor as her shoulders slumped. Jisoo tightened her hold, rubbing slow circles on Amira's back. "I know," she murmured. "But you're not alone. Not anymore." Amira closed her eyes, trying to believe it, but the principal's words still echoed inside her. "Skull. Lucky you weren't deported. Never mess with someone higher than you." No matter how tightly Jisoo held her, the weight of those words refused to loosen. Days turned into weeks, and Amira mostly stayed inside her room. The only time she went out were when Jisoo visited. Together with Jisoo's siblings, they would have fun, and those moments brought Amira a bit of light in her gloomy days. One afternoon, while Amira and Jisoo were walking, someone suddenly stepped in front of them. To their shock, it was Hyunwoo. "Hyunwoo," Jisoo said, folding her arms across her chest as she stared at him. But Hyenwa's eyes were fixed on Amira. She glared at him briefly before looking away. Without warning, he grabbed her hand and pulled her to a corner. "What is it?" Amira snapped. Why can't I get you out of my mind lately?" he blurted. "Huh. What's that supposed to mean? If you don't mind." Before she could finish, he suddenly pressed his lips against hers and then stared at her. "How dare you?" she shouted. "What? Isn't it what you did to me that ruined your life like this?" he shot back. "You can return to school starting tomorrow," he said flatly. "Your suspension has been lifted." He didn't wait for her reply, he just walked away. Amira blinked after him, stunned. What? For a moment she wondered if she'd imagined it. She turned, still dazed, and spotted Jisoo hurrying toward her. Before she could speak, her phone buzzed in her pocket. A message. Her fingers trembled as she swiped the screen. "Notice of reinstatement. Dear Miss Lucas, your suspension has been officially lifted. You may resume classes immediately." Amira's breath caught. Tears welled, spilling before she could stop them. "Jisoo," she whispered, her voice shaking. "My suspension, it's gone." Jisoo's eyes lit up. "Are you serious?" Amira nodded so hard her braids bounced. Then she let out a sharp laugh and threw her arms around Jisoo. The two of them clung to each other and laughing through tears. The next morning, Amira stepped into Dehan's main corridor with a smile so wide it felt impossible to hide. The polished floor gleamed beneath her shoes, the smell of floor wax and paper cutting through the faint chill of autumn air. Students turned as she passed, curious, whispering, but for once their stares didn't pierce her. Let them look back. Guess who's back, a voice drawled. She slowed. Hyunwoo's friend leaned casually against a locker, smirk curling his lips. She tried to walk past but he slid in front of her, blocking the way. Wow, he said, lowering his voice like it was a private joke. You actually managed to seduce the principal, huh? Or was it Hyunwoo? Which one bought your ticket back in? Aren't you ashamed of yourself? The smirk deepened as a few students nearby pretended not to listen. She raised her chin, eyes locking with his. And for once she refused to step back. Before Amira could form a reply, a sharp voice sliced through the hallway. Get away from her. The words echoed like a slap. Every head turned. Hyunwoo stood a few paces away, hands shoved into his pockets, his dark eyes colder than winter. His friend straightened, startled. Hyunwoo. Move, Hyunwoo ordered, his tone flat but dangerous. The boy hesitated, then stepped back, palms raised in mock surrender. Fine man. Chill. Hyunwoo walked forward, his stride calm but deliberate, and to Amira's shock he reached out and gently took her hand. Gasps rippled through the hallway. A few students lifted their phones, pretending to check messages while recording every second. Amira froze, heart hammering. What is he doing? Hyunwoo didn't look at her. He kept his eyes on the crowd as he said, if anyone so much as breathes wrong around her, you'll answer to me. The hallway went silent. From that day on, everything changed. Hyunwoo became her unexpected shadow. He walked with her to class, stood outside her locker, and without a hint of irony, pulled chairs away from anyone who tried to sit too close. His friends, once the loudest tormentors, were now forced to bow their heads and mumble apologies while Hyunwoo stood behind them like a drill sergeant. The most unforgettable moment came a week later. During lunch break, Hyunwoo dragged his entire group to the center of the cafeteria, clapped his hands and ordered, on the floor. They balked. What? You heard me. Under the curious gaze of half the school, the boys slowly knelt. Hyunwoo crossed his arms and began barking commands. Lower. Now apologize properly. Each of you. To Amira. One by one, they lowered their heads and muttered apologies, their voices barely audible over the laughter spreading through the room. Hyunwoo wasn't satisfied. He gave each of them a sharp slap on the back of the head. Louder. The second round of apologies came out in unison, clear, desperate, and hilarious. Amira covered her face, half mortified, half choking on laughter. It was the funniest, strangest day she had ever experienced at Dehan. After that, Hyunwoo's friends treated her like royalty. They carried her books, fetched her water, and even offered to do her homework. One afternoon, as they walked across the courtyard, Amira finally turned to him. Why are you doing all this? She asked, narrowing her eyes. Is this some new way to make fun of me? Hyunwoo stopped, shoving his hands deeper into his pockets. No. Then what? He exhaled, the usual smirk absent from his face. Because I like you, he said simply. And because you made me realize how ugly I'd become. Nobody's ever stood up to me like you did. You didn't just embarrass me, you woke me up. Amira's heart stumbled. I didn't do anything. You did more than you know, he replied quietly. You made me want to change. For a long moment neither of them spoke. From then on they settled into an easy rhythm. Hyunwoo sat with Amira and Jisoo at lunch, joking until Jisoo rolled her eyes but never hid her grin. Amira helped him with math, patiently guiding him through formulas he pretended to hate but secretly enjoyed if it meant more time with her. When finals approached, Hyunwoo invited Amira to his family's penthouse for a study session. The place was massive, glass walls, soft leather couches, a view of the city glittering like a spilled galaxy. But the evening nearly went sideways when his mother walked in. Her eyes narrowed the instant she saw Amira. Her. Hyunwoo stepped forward, his voice calm but firm. She's here to help me with math. That's it. His mother looked from Amira to her son, suspicion flickering across her perfectly made-up face. For a tense moment the room held its breath. Finally she gave a small, tight nod. Fine. But only because you need to pass your exams. Amira exhaled in relief, clutching her textbook a little tighter. As Hyunwoo led her toward the study table he shot her a quick grin. Told you it deep fine, he whispered. She rolled her eyes but couldn't stop the small smile tugging at her lips. For the first time since arriving in Korea, Dehan didn't feel like a battlefield. Felt, strangely, unexpectedly, like the start of something new. When the exam results were finally posted, the hallway outside the office turned into a storm of shouting students. Papers rustled, sneakers squeaked, voices rose in disbelief and celebration. Amira squeezed through the crowd, her heart hammering against her ribs. Jisoo clung to her arm, whispering rapid prayers under her breath. Check. Jisoo urged, practically bouncing. Amira scanned the list. Her name appeared near the top. Bold, clear, undeniable. Amira Lucas, highest distinction. She slapped a hand over her mouth, her eyes going wide. I passed, she whispered, almost afraid to say it too loud. Not just passed, Jisoo squealed, hugging her tight. You crushed it. Before Amira could catch her breath, a familiar voice called her name. Hey genius. Hyunwoo leaned against the wall, a lazy grin tugging at his lips. He held up his own results sheet. At the top, next to his name, gleamed the same gold seal of distinction. You, Amira blinked, speechless. You passed. Not just passed, he said, smirking. Second highest. Right under you. I'd call that a win. Jisoo clapped her hands and hooped, drawing a few curious stares from nearby students. Graduation day arrived beneath a flawless spring sky. Cherry blossoms drifted through the courtyard like pink snow as families filled the grand auditorium. Cameras flashed. The scent of fresh flowers clung to the air. Amira adjusted her cap and tried to steady her breathing. She spotted Jisoo waving wildly from across the stage, her grin so wide it could split her face. Beside her, Hyunwoo stood tall and composed, until he caught Amira's eye and gave a tiny thumbs up that made her laugh despite the lump in her throat. After the ceremony, when diplomas were clutched and photos taken, Hyunwoo's mother approached. Elegant and poised in a silk hanbok, she moved with the quiet authority of someone used to being obeyed. Miss Lucas, she said, stopping just in front of Amira. Amira stiffened. Memories of cold glares and cruel words flashed like lightning in her mind. But this time the woman's expression was different. Softer. I owe you a great deal, Hyunwoo's mother said quietly. My son passed his exams on merit, without bribes, without scandal. Because of you. Amira opened her mouth but no sound came. The woman continued, her voice steady. As a gesture of gratitude, our family would like to offer you a full scholarship. Anywhere you choose, here in Korea, abroad. Your future should never be limited by money. Amira's heart skipped. A scholarship? And, the woman added, a small smile flickering across her lips. I hope you will stay by my son's side. He's different now. Happier. You have my thanks for that. The world seemed to tilt. Amira felt Jisoo clutch her shoulder, felt Hyunwoo step closer, his warmth brushing against her back. I don't know what to say, Amira stammered. Say yes, Jisoo whispered urgently, earning a quiet laugh from Hyunwoo. Amira looked at Hyunwoo. His eyes, once sharp and mocking, held nothing but quiet certainty. Yes, she said, her voice firm despite the happy tremor running through it. I'd be honored. That night, the three of them, Amira, Hyunwoo and Jisoo, celebrated until the stars faded. They danced beneath strings of lights, traded jokes over steaming bowls of tteokbokki, and shouted promises about the future. When the time came for college, they all chose the same university. Days turned into months of shared classes, late-night study sessions, and laughter that echoed across campus lawns. For the first time since stepping onto Korean soil, Amira no longer felt like an outsider. She was exactly where she was meant to be, loved, challenged, and free to dream without fear. And as she stood beneath the cherry blossoms one bright spring afternoon, Hyunwoo's hand brushing hers, she realized that what began as humiliation had blossomed into a life she never imagined. One built on friendship, courage, and a love that defied every boundary. And now we've reached the end of this beautiful story. I'd love to hear your thoughts. What did you think of the story and where are you watching from? Don't forget to subscribe for more on this channel, because new stories are already on the way this week.